Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So I was getting ready for my day and I had a beautiful awareness that really helped me put some things into perspective, so I thought I would share that with you. So if we talk about our intimate relationships, and I don't just mean a love relationship as in romantic love, I'm talking about intimate relationships, people that we interact with on a regular basis, our family, our close friends, our tight-knit circle, our work, not intimate in physical nature or necessarily feeling that, you know, real warm, squishy feeling. I'm talking intimate quarters or communal relationships where we're interacting constantly, church groups, social groups, whatever they are, sports groups. So if we talk about that, how can we notice what our standard of excellence is for our behavior? One way that we know, and by standard of excellence of behavior, I mean, what is our standard for how we choose to be treated by other individuals? We already know pretty much what our standard of how we treat other people. We know because we're doing it, we're setting it unintentionally or intentionally. Either way, we can observe our own behavior if we are doing so. And oftentimes we're observing that many people are observing their own behavior of, you know, well, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, or I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, or I don't want to make them mad, or something like that. And so those are definitely my people mostly that I'm probably talking to, and who the target audience would likely be that would actually stop and want to listen to this in the first place. So when we're observing the behavior of other people, though, let's step out of observation mode of ourselves and wondering, you know, what our speech or our statement is going to make and what effect it's going to have on somebody else. Less so concerned about that, but just literally observing what is the lowest, darkest behavior that we see being given to us. And I'm not talking about it in mirroring. I'm talking just take that at its baseline. What I said is, what's the lowest vibe behavior that's being exhibited towards you? Who's the person in your life that is setting the standard of what you're willing to take from people in terms of their dark behavior, their nasty attitudes, their slick comments, their, you know, passive-aggressive behavior, their physical aggression that's, you know, just barely hidden, you know, things like that. What is the least form of cultured, graceful behavior that we're willing to take? And that sets your standard for behavior towards you, unfortunately, for us as people, not just you, me, everybody. That whatever the lowest vibe stuff is that we're interacting with, that sets the low bar standard of what the energy is that we're dealing with or willing to deal with. And I'm not talking about necessarily dealing with somebody in a grocery store that flies up in your face and gives you a one-off somewhere. I'm talking about continued daily interactions. The lowest, most negative behavior, passive-aggressive or aggressive-aggressive or sweetly manipulative, and, you know, backbiting, gossiping, all of this stuff, these things that are just, they're our lower nature, very egoically identified. When we are interacting with that vibe of energy and that vibe of interaction with people who are exhibiting those behaviors, or we're doing it ourselves, we're standing the low bar for our energy. We're setting that low bar standard for our energy, the bottom side of it. So really, we're only going to be able to reach a high vibe state to a certain point because our energy can't spread out, you know, over 6 miles. We are really setting a very narrow field of operational energy when we're swinging down into stuff that we're either taking abusive behavior or impolite, you know, whatever level it is, whatever it is that disrespects us on any level, that standard is what's set by the lowest form of it that we're dealing with in our lives, especially when it's on a daily chronic basis. We're setting that standard. We've got to groove into, I allow this person, my boss, to talk to me that way because they're my boss, of course. Well, when we allow that standard to be set anywhere in our lives, it's set everywhere in our lives. And that means that that open vibrational field is open for anybody that resonates in there to come flying into a grocery store and bring their trash to you on the one-off, seemingly, right? So all sorts of situations can be contrived and made up out of these vibrational fields where we're operating. If we're willing to take somebody's, you know, dark, nasty sense of humor, or their, you know, sexual harassment, the overtones of violence, the overtones of cunning manipulation, or being swindled by somebody, or their aggressive, hostile stuff that they're actually coming at us, or they're making fun of us in some way. We know that we're being gossiped about. When we don't put our foot down and set the standard of behavior. And I'm not talking about bossing anybody else around. I'm talking about at least having a voice to say, I choose to interact with you differently. I want this to stop. I want this behavior to change. We will see our whole entire world rock when we start setting a new standard for ourselves by putting our foot right in it and saying, the standard isn't down there in the toilet anymore. I flushed the toilet, I got up out of there, and I choose to stand somewhere else because I don't want to be treated this way anymore. No matter whether you have somebody in your life that treats you just beautifully on the top end of this stuff, if your low bar is that down there, then you're really not going to be able to fully appreciate the person that's truly there and truly down for you. And that person, if they're truly, giving altruistically, they're probably not going to stick around very long to fill that vacuous void of someone not really truly being able to appreciate them, because they're too busy wondering, why am I down here in the toilet being spoken to by my mother, my sister, my brother, my boss, my husband, my children, my cousin, my tennis club, whatever it is. We're in those places allowing people to set our standard for us because we haven't really done enough work yet to say, this is what the standard of excellence is for me. If we're actually behaving like that, that will also slow us down. If we're quick to gossip about someone else, if we're quick to be harsh to someone, or to really just jump into their knickers and get busy with screaming and carrying on, or if we're divisive in some way, if we're tricky, if we are going behind someone's back and doing something really nasty, if we're doing those kinds of things, then absolutely we set our own bar down in the toilet. So we really can't get very far in that vibrational field. It's not this wide. The potential is unlimited to go higher vibe, higher vibe, higher vibe. However, we're going to cap ourselves with what our lowest point of what we're willing to give or to receive is. So when we learn how to set our own standard for our own behavior, most people that would be interested in this kind of a video probably already have a standard that's not all that we're putting out there. However, it doesn't mean that we aren't necessarily still taking it. And unfortunately, that still keeps us pinned down in a very glass ceiling where we can be talking about, bubbles and light and love and all of these things, and still feel that kind of dark and nasty pull whenever somebody says something to us, or we're interacting with family members, or a job situation, or a church dynamic, or something where there's high manipulation. People at this time in history are really, really being challenged in their ego points, and so they're digging in deep into their manipulation points. I've seen and heard more dumb comments. I thought it was really a year ago. I was pretty amazed with, wow, this has turned into the upside down and it's really ridiculous. However, it just has continued to get even more ridiculous, which is a little bit hard to believe. And yet this is the time that we're in. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, where, we really aren't going to be doing any of these old paradigm structures, any of these old systems, any of these thought processes. None of them will be the same, not a one of them. The age of Aquarius is very, very, very different. It's collaborative. It doesn't involve me being only concerned with myself and looking to find a way to be better than somebody else. And this isn't about assessing people and saying, well, they're low vibe and I'm better. They are acting out of their lower nature and I don't want to hang out with them, is all that's really needing to be said. I have a better standard for myself because I don't feel good. When people feel good acting out of their low vibe, or they think they know that, or they think they feel good acting out of that lower nature of themselves, it's because they're enjoying their time in the ego. They're enjoying that sense of power, that sense of, domination and all of that. And it's not okay with me. It is okay because it's allowable. Everybody has free will and everybody gets to be the ginormous dill hole that they want to be, or the ginormous non-dill hole, whatever, and everything in between. Free will allows that. However, free will does not extend over into the lives of other people. That's what boundaries are about. And that's all that, for me, spiritual dancing with people is allowing other people to be in their low nature, their high nature, whatever they want. It's not my business to try to convert anybody or to try to educate them or try to do anything to tell them one way or another, other than to let my boundary be known of, I don't hang out in places where people set the lowest standard that I'm not willing to take. The lowest standard of somebody being chronically late might be something I would tolerate. However, if my lowest standard is that somebody is going to have some snotty comment to me or tell me how to dress or comment on anything that I'm saying, like, don't say that, I don't like that, or things that are juvenile and petty, that's setting the standard far lower than I care to play, because I'm not willing to play back at that level. And then it's just abuse, because I could observe that, I could see that, and it's abusive to sit there and allow that person to keep moving in that vein of abusive behavior. It's not actually very compassionate or unconditionally loving at all to allow people to act out of their lower nature and give them a place to open up that forum and have it live very long. And I'm not saying that I am about hurting people or damaging their reputation and saying they're so this or they're so that. What I'm saying is the less that we feed those kinds of behaviors, the less that they'll be able to propagate, the less that they'll be able to continue to spread. And it helps the seeding in and the seeding in of these new earth energies. It helps the anchoring in of compassion and kindness, which compassion is truly sometimes just slapping a hand before you hold it. And I'm not talking about physically, and I'm not talking about pushing other people around. I'm saying that by virtue of the fact that we stand in our own energy and we stand with our own energetic boundaries that are very firm, and we have very high standards for ourselves that we keep and maintain. If I have a high standard for myself, that means I have a high standard for other people too. If I'm not going to gossip about you, then I'm not going to tolerate you gossiping about me. That kind of stuff. When we do that, we are setting the tone, and we are no longer feeding a system that it goes out faster, it goes out cleaner, and it goes out with far more kindness than to keep doing battle at the same level that it's showing up in my life. And so if I see a chronic problem somewhere in my life with people who have, snarky bad behavior, or, just chronically dark stuff is showing up, however it feels, if I feel that shame work, that means I have work to do, not to change another person, to change me, so that no matter what anybody says to me, no matter who they are, it's not going to ruin my day, nor is it going to slow me down, nor is it going to keep me from understanding that those people need to be dealt with kindly and with compassion and with very firm boundaries. And sometimes it's better to slap a hand than to hold it. And so for me, that looks like being very clear about what kind of behavior I'm willing to accept from someone, and the least low vibe behavior that I'm willing to take out of someone is not going to be is not going to be some of the stuff that I used to put up with 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because I was allowing that to happen. It continued to happen, and it set that standard that it was okay for anybody to talk to me like that, or to act like that, or to do that. And I found out the hard way that when we allow ourselves to be setting that standard, either giving or receiving, then we're playing in a whole different game, that when that's fully activated into combat mode, we may or may not understand how very dangerous that is. I did not until I was absolutely dropped to the floor in, the middle of some stuff that I didn't even know I was in the midst of, because I allowed behavior that really was setting a very low bar standard, that other people could go into their darkest places and keep setting the standard lower and lower and lower. And rather than putting my foot down and saying, as I'm seeing it decline, 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 rather than put my foot down and say, no, absolutely not, that was some bullshit back there, it's just gotten worse, that it set a standard lower and lower, lower and lower and lower, to the point that it was becoming too difficult to try to stay in a very loving or kind place. And I felt myself starting to, want to retaliate, want to get very nasty, want to say and do things that were out of pocket for me personally and for what my level of integrity of what I wanted to be. I was losing my grip on that, and I thought, oh no, so complete separation from any and all of it. And yes, it was difficult. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it was very unpleasant and quite hostile on, a lot of fronts. However, that's the equivalent of spiritual warfare to me, is setting spiritual boundaries, setting energetic boundaries, setting my own personal soul boundaries. However you look at that, I'm setting my boundaries, and they begin by setting my own spiritual boundary, is that I'm not willing to sink down into the toilet when I'd really rather be looking at the penthouse always. Where's the next penthouse that I can be reaching to see the best place of being that I can be, to have a vantage point that's more beautiful, that's more filled with the Age of Aquarius kind of energy. And when I'm being constantly brought here either by someone or I feel like that towards someone, then no, I'm hanging out in the wrong place if I have to keep trying to jostle, because I'm not really going to make it back to the penthouse every time. I may make it to the 5th or 6th or 7th floor and settle for that, and I want far more than that for myself and other people. However, I'm only responsible for the elevator of me, not for anybody else. And so setting those boundaries is how we get there more cleanly, in my opinion. It's not by having other people prop us up there, because the minute that they don't want to do that anymore, then bam, what do we do? And so spiritual sovereignty is what the age of Aquarius is about let me, 1444, move myself up my own door and get there very cleanly and clearly, and with very clean boundaries as well. So I hope that that's helped you in some way, and I hope you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It is so magical, beautiful, and already way above the penthouse all of the time, and it's absolutely fine. Take care of your gorgeous selves, and I'll see you again next time. Mwah. Goodbye, my beautiful friends.